As I've said in the past, you know I'm a big fan and advocate of shopping at the farmer's market. And right now it's Friday, so it's the end of the week, and I'm sort of left with a few fresh things. You know, they're not old by any means, but I want to get this stuff out of the refrigerator so that I can make room for new fresh stuff when I go shopping tomorrow morning. If you've been following me on Instagram, you know I make this side dish sort of regularly, and it's based around barley. Now, barley is a grain. It's super good for you. What are some of these health benefits of barley? Let's just research real quick. It's got antioxidants linked to a lower risk of cancer and heart disease. It may reduce hunger and it may help you lose weight. It's got insoluble and soluble fiber, helps you improve digestion. It may help lower cholesterol, helps protect against diabetes. It's low glycemic, and it's actually just delicious. So it's easy to incorporate into your diet so you feel good about eating it. It's easy to cook, much easier to cook than rice. I'm gonna show you how I make it, and I pretty much approach it like stir fry, like a rice stir fry. And the one thing that's cool about barley is it's like pretty hard to overcook, which is the opposite of rice. So I can cook this now and not cool it down at all, and then fry it up in a pan and make some sort of fried rice component with it. I'm gonna throw it with some onion, some fresh carrots. I've got these sugar snap peas from the market. I've got these beautiful shiitake mushrooms, this fresh, young, hard-stemmed garlic, which is so delicious. I picked this up when the skins weren't purple yet, and it was just like fresh out of the ground. You don't see it this fresh in the store a lot, so that's been great. And then of course we've got our Swiss chard here. The way we're gonna approach this is we're going to dice these up in a specific way so that it sort of matches the size of cooked barley. Obviously we don't need to get perfect, and mushrooms are like a weird shape for us to cut in that sense, but we're gonna do the best we can, and just know that when we take a spoonful, we want, you know, a little bit of everything in that spoonful, and the way that you get that is by cutting everything in a similar way. But the first thing we want to do is get the barley cooking, so by the time everything's chopped, we can get ready to just finish this up and stir fry everything. So just like most grains that have starch, kind of want to rinse that starch out. The starch is not going to do anything for us in a stir fry, so we want to just rinse this off real quick. You could just rinse it under the sink. I'm showing you how much starch comes off there immediately right here. And I just like to agitate it, get the starch kind of loosened up. And then we'll just rinse and kind of repeat. By the way, this is a cup of barley. Now barley comes both pearled and unpearled, but these are unpearled, so they'll be a lot easier to cook, and looks like we got most of the starch out, so I'm pretty good. Now to make sure we don't have a ton of starch in the final barley, I'm gonna just cook it like pasta. I'm gonna bring water up to a boil, add that to the pan, and I'm gonna just boil it for about 15 minutes or until I can taste the barley and it's nice and soft. The thing about barley is it's soft, but it should have a chewiness to it, and then you're gonna know it's gonna be done. You can strain it and hold it, and then we can finish the process once it's all done. So let me just fill this up with water. So you don't need to cook barley by any sort of ratio. We're just gonna kind of cook it like a pot of pasta. Lots of water, salt. We don't want a concentration of starch in the barley at the end. Once it's up to a boil, add the barley, give it a nice stir, bring it up to a simmer, and we're gonna cook this uncovered until it's nice, al dente, and chewy. Let's get into cutting some veg. First, basic stuff you know. Onion, carrots, garlic. We're gonna cut the onions into a dice, the carrots into a dice, and we're gonna slice the garlic as usual, trying to achieve roughly the same sizes with these two. The onion's pretty straightforward to cut. We're just gonna cut into small dices. The carrot can be a little tricky because it's got a fat end and a skinny end. With the skinny end, we can cut each one in half and then each half in half again, so you get quarters. Then just cut those into a small dice. The fat ones we'll cut each half into threes, so each one cuts up into 6 little planks. then you can cut those into dices. Now I know I'm going to add the carrot and onion at around the same time in the pan, so I put them in the same bowl, but I'm going to separate items that I'm going to add at different times. So this is one batch, this is going to go over here. I'll do some garlic, I'll do like maybe 3 of these cloves. They're actually kind of big. So I just cut them in half, and then the paper becomes so easy to peel. I mean, it just comes out that easy. There's no hack here. It's not some crazy contraption you need. It's just simple, it just comes out. Sometimes they want to battle with you a little bit, but whatever, you just work with it. The smell of this fresh garlic is insane. I'm gonna have to start growing garlic soon. Now sugar snap peas, we went over these a couple years ago. These are my favorite. I pretty much only prefer to eat them raw, but sometimes I like them cooked. And the way you handle them is there's this string that runs along this kind of curved end. And where it attaches to the plant, you just take it and then pull that string right off. And then that's how you prep these guys. So just take them, clean them of the string first, and then we'll cut them. Now I just want to cut them into that kind of shape. Now the mushrooms, I just pull out a little bit of the stem. I just sort of twist and pull, and it comes right out. Now there's different sizes of the mushrooms, so the way I cut this one, it's going to be a little different than the way I cut this one. So this one I'm going to cut into 3s across and then into squares. So like this. So like that, and then cut it again like that. And now remember, mushrooms will shrink. So that is going to shrink by about half. So you want to cut it anticipating the shrinkage. This one I'll only cut in half because it is mid-size, not too big, not too small, and then the same way. Then I'm going to take any hard stems from these guys. The Swiss chard stems are a little tough, so I can kind of treat those as onions. I'll throw those in with the carrots and onions to start cooking. And then just cut these into little ribbons. And if you want to, you can cut it down in half. Just to have smaller, bite-sized pieces that'll sort of wilt into the stir fry. So we have our carrot and onions and our chard stems cut. Our sugar snap peas are cut. Our mushrooms are cut. Our garlic is cut, and our greens are cut. Everything's prepped. The barley should be about done. We can strain that, and we can put it in a bowl and get that ready to cook. And this is a game of timing. Each one of these things is gonna cook differently. So I'm gonna bring you over to the stove, and I'm gonna talk you through the thought process behind when I add what. So let's just jump right into it. So the barley's been cooking for about 15 to 20 minutes. And just like pasta, we're gonna wanna taste it to make sure it's done. Once it's soft and chewy, we're gonna strain it and just hold that off to the side while we saute everything else. And get a big pan. I like a non-stick pan with curved edges for this. And with all stir fries, we're gonna wanna go with really high heat for this. So add some olive oil, and the first thing we're gonna start to cook are the mushrooms. Get them in the pan, get a little salt on them, and then just cook them on high heat. And we're looking for a little bit of color to start to develop on them. Then we can add the carrots and the onions. Lightly season the onions. Now make sure you keep enough oil in this dish at all times. You don't want it to dry out at all. And what I'm actually missing is a little bit of fresh thyme. So I'm gonna go out to my garden and pick a few sprigs and add them to the dish. At this point, I'm really looking for some good caramelization on all the ingredients in the pan right now before I begin to start adding other ingredients. So when you start to see little onions start to brown and the mushrooms brown, then you know it's a good time to start adding more ingredients. And then before you add the garlic and the peas, get some oil in there. You need that to be the vehicle to transfer all of that flavor into all the other ingredients. So then get those peas and that garlic in there and start to really caramelize that garlic and create a lot of deep flavor. Season with salt. I know it's adding a lot of salt, but we're seasoning as we're going. And look at all this under-seasoned barley that we just added. So it's gonna balance out. Incorporate that barley, get it nice and fried up. Add a little bit of oil if you need. It's gonna soak it up and add lots of flavor. And then once everything is pretty much done, we can add this Swiss chard. Touch more salt because we just added another ingredient, and then we're just going to incorporate that into the stir fry, allow that chard to wilt in, and then we're going to check for flavor and make sure it's just really delicious. If you need to add a little bit of salt, you can add a little bit of salt. If you want to finish it like a normal fried rice with like a soy sauce or like in this case a balsamic vinegar, feel free to. You can even add lemon juice, but we're just going to keep it really simple and fresh today. I mean, it's really delicious. Once you get a little caramelization on everything, a little bit of that garlic, the onions, the carrots, it really starts to add flavor, and then that barley absorbs it. You could even make it like fried rice, add a little soy sauce on it. You could add a little balsamic, like I showed earlier. You can take it in any way you want. The thing that I like about barley though is like, look how granular it is. You know, there's no starchy stickiness to it. All the grains are sort of individual, which is what you always want with rice, but it's always a little bit harder to do if you don't have a rice cooker. This pairs well with just about anything. A fish, any piece of meat, chicken. It's gonna be a beautiful meal. It's gonna be well balanced. Lots of vegetables in there. Your kids are gonna love it. It's just a great way to get all your favorite stuff in one dish. You could even fry an egg on top and just serve it as is, as its own little meal. It's fantastic. Throw it in your regimen. You need to be making this. I promise it's gonna take good care of you. Tag me on Instagram. Make sure you tag me on Instagram. I know I hadn't been reposting a lot from people recently, but I will start to repost the things that you cook. I love seeing what you're doing. The Food Freak with 2 Ks on Instagram. Make sure you go tag me when you make stuff. That's it. Thank you so much for watching. Appreciate all of you. Appreciate my patrons scrolling up on the screen right now. That's all that I have today. I'll see you next time. Until then, take care of yourself and go feed yourself.